The world today is faced with severe challenges. Every day, we hear a lot of bad news about the situation in the global south, but also in the north. In my country, poverty is growing, inequality is widening, hunger is increasing, and violations of human rights are intensifying. The climate is changing, and it is creating unimaginable impacts in vulnerable and poor countries like the Philippines. My name is Bembet Madrid, and I live and I work in the Philippines. I work with the Swiss NGO Fastenopfer, and I coordinate the program in the Philippines. Together with 1,500 communities of small peasants, fishers, and indigenous peoples, we try to create transformational actions in the field of addressing hunger, poverty, marginalization. The Philippines is in Southeast Asia. We are a beautiful country with 7,100 islands. I have been doing development work and people empowerment for the past 35 years. It's already a long time. 2 months ago, I became a grandmother. As I look at my first granddaughter, her name is Acacia, I look at her and I tell myself, I should not stop doing this work. I should continue the work for social transformation because Acacia and many children all over the world deserve a better future. They deserve a better future that is really much better than what I experience. My vision, what is my vision as a development worker? My dream is a world that is just, sustainable, a world where no one is left behind. I am committed to this vision. How does this work concretely? And how did I start doing development work? Living in a very poor country like the Philippines exposed me to poverty. I come from a very, very poor family myself. And I witnessed the life of the people struggling for survival on a daily basis. This awakened my consciousness on equality. This raised my awareness and my consciousness that this is not right, this is not just, and we should change it. Transformation is really needed. So transformation can only happen when there is self-awareness. The two things come together. Awareness leads to empowerment, and empowerment leads to community transformation. Without empowerment, there is no community transformation. And without awareness, there is no empowerment. I would like to share with you, to concretize this, I would like to tell you 3 stories of how we are doing community transformation in the Philippines. As you know, the Philippines is an agricultural country. In 1970s, 75% of the people rely on agriculture as their main subsistence and livelihood. In the 1970s, the Philippines became a dumping ground for hybrid seeds, chemicals, and pesticides. This was offered as a solution to the poor peasants, with the promise that hybrid seeds, chemicals, and fertilizers would improve the livelihood of farmers, that it would improve the productivity of the farms. But after many years, that was a false solution. Now, the farmers are poorer than before. They are indebted. Chemical agriculture, hybrid seeds, is not only bad for the environment because it degraded our soils, our once fertile soil, it is also bad for the economy because farmers became poorer and poorer. The challenge is how to shift from chemical agriculture to a more sustainable agriculture. So the transformation happened when we started to work with farmers' organizations to raise their awareness on the negative effects of hybrid seeds and chemicals and pesticides, and for them to form associations to challenge this unsustainable farming system. Today, because of this awareness, farmers in the Philippines have now shifted from chemical agriculture to agroecological agriculture. Agroecology is a system that works with nature. It is more sustainable, it is more just, and it is more liberating for farmers because they are no more indebted. They are no more in bondage. Today, we have done community-based seed banking. This is very, very important to retrieve the seeds, to collect seeds again. We are also doing community participatory plant breeding to be able to breed again our traditional rice varieties. The third story I want to tell you is about the story of climate change. As you know, the Philippines is in the Pacific, and we are in the Pacific typhoon belt. Each year, 25 to 27 typhoons make landfall in the Philippines, and these typhoons are very, very destructive. We know that rising ocean temperatures are increasing the strength of typhoons. The more the waters become hot, the more the typhoons become intense and stronger and more destructive. So science is already telling us that the intensity of typhoons will become stronger each year. In 2013, we experienced the strongest typhoon ever in the Philippines. That's Typhoon Haiyan. It is by far the strongest typhoon in history. Category 5, 315 kilometers per hour. Can you imagine, driving a car 315 kilometers per hour? That was the strength of the typhoon. When we went to the communities and we asked them, how did you describe that experience? And they told us, it's like being inside a washing machine. They were just going around, and the typhoon stayed for one day in the Philippines, making more than 4 million people homeless, and more than 10,000 people died during the terrible disaster. Climate change is a big issue in the Philippines. But what we have done is not to become victims. We are now working with communities that don't want to become victims anymore. They want to become survivors. They want to build communities that are resilient to disasters. They cannot be helpless anymore. So together with organizations in the Philippines, we are doing disaster risk reduction. And in disaster risk reductions, we are helping communities. They are marginalized communities. These are communities of fishers, peasants, indigenous peoples. We are helping them to be able to do risk mappings, to analyze the risk, to create hazard maps, to create emergency plans, to create community-based early warning systems. And through these mechanisms, communities are better prepared when there is a typhoon coming. So in the last 3 years, we have been able to somehow reduce the impacts of disasters. We have been able to build resilience in community. But this begins with awareness. With awareness, with capacity building, with community mobilization, we can make transformation. I'm very happy to say that from victims, people have become survivors, and these survivors are now successfully building resilient communities. The Philippines is still very much at risk to climate change. In fact, the World Risk Report has ranked the Philippines as the third country at most risk to climate change. For the past 7 years, we have been ranked the third country that is at most risk to climate change. Our greenhouse gas emission is nothing compared to the greenhouse gas emissions of countries in the north. But we are the ones suffering from the greenhouse. We are the ones suffering. Vulnerable countries have no capacity to adapt. We don't have capacities to mitigate the impacts of climate change. And so we also believe in climate justice. We think that we need to be together to address the impacts of climate change and to work for climate justice. And we think that global solidarity is really needed. I also want to end my talk with the message of Arundhati Roy. Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. And in the Philippines, transformation is happening. Transformation is being done in the remote areas, and this creates hope. This gives us hope that another world is truly possible. Thank you so much.